2022. Our latest film, Tswa with Love, won Best Feature and Best Screenplay at the African International Film Festival, AFRIC, and was now opening at the Tswa Film Festival on opening night. Please put your hands together again. So without further ado, we are going to get right into it. And okay. We're going to get right into it. In Nollywood today, and I want to start with Nwamaka and then go round. In Nollywood today, we hear a lot of buzzwords, and bold storytelling seems to be one of them. You know, filmmakers want to be associated with bold storytelling or bold stories. And it begs the question, what does bold storytelling mean? What does it mean to tell a story that is bold? And to you personally, from your personal experience as a filmmaker in the industry, what does bold storytelling mean to you?
Hello everyone. So, for me, bold means true and not noisy. Right? It's not as I'm not big. Bold is just plain old vulnerable truth. That's how I would explain it. Because if you're not telling a truthful story or a story from an honest perspective, because sometimes honesty is being politically incorrect, and no matter what's the popular, or just being unpopular particularly, but it's not the same thing as just intentionally going left, just so that people can see that you're not doing something conventional. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, I think I have a follow-up question. You mentioned that for you to tell a good story, you have to be truthful. So now, in the sense of being truthful, is it being truthful to yourself as a person and a filmmaker, or being truthful to the story and what it requires?
I don't think there's much of a difference between being truthful to yourself as a filmmaker and being truthful to the story. Because if you're truthful to yourself, it's going to be very hard not to be truthful to the story. I believe that the story is king, and if you're even if because it's not always easy to be authentic, because sometimes being authentic means putting part of yourself out there, because your film is your voice, or it's an opinion you're trying, no matter how you want to hide it. If you make a film, you take a stand about certain issues. So if you're not seeing the world from a very honest, vulnerable, truthful, you won't be able to be true to the core of the story. So it's the same thing. There's no difference between being true to the story and being if you're lying to yourself, if you're trying to hide something, it's going to, if you put deep into the story, it's going to also reflect. Because some characters, you won't allow them to fully form, because it will reflect, if you're not true to yourself, it's going to reflect body on the story. So,
Alright, let's hear Reuben. What would you say what storytelling means to you?
Hello everybody. So for me, bold storytelling is, first I'll start by saying that we are all artists as filmmakers, and as a filmmaker, if you're an artist and you want to tell a story, or you want to, show something to the society or to the audience or whatever, you have to ask yourself certain questions. And the question, I suppose, for me is, why am I telling this story, and why do I believe in this story? Or why do I not believe in this story? So I think that the boldness and the authenticity comes from within you as an artist, trying to reflect your own idea, your own view, your own truth, your own perspective of either the subject matter or the cause at the end of the day. So I think a true artist is must have, the boldness of expression, the boldness of authenticity, the boldness of, like Nwamaka said, truth. Because without that, I don't think that you would be called an artist. So I think that that's something that a true artist or a true filmmaker would try to do. And I think that maybe at this point, I would say that the Nigerian film industry is having that reawakening where bold storytelling, bold narrative becomes the goal of the day, because in itself represents who we are, and me as a person, the stories that I tell or the stories that I want to be a part of are the stories that I personally believe that are impactful to me, and the key themes of the story mean something to me. If they don't mean anything to me, then I can't really connect, and without connection, you can't really be bold enough to express yourself, because there will always be that lie in trying to translate that. Thank you.
I'll get back to you shortly, but let's hear from Ajay.
Hi everyone. To me, both storytelling is mirroring the society that we live in any like art form that we choose, right? And mirroring the society that we live in the sense that these stories are a true representation of the people living in this society, right? And that for me is both storytelling, and it's also like taking a stand on something, whether that's political, social justice, or any other issues that we as a society experience. I'm just like, making an impact and representing truthfully the people living in the society.
Let's get back to Reuben. Yes. My question now is, why do you answering? You mentioned the fact that the story you want to tell have to mean something to you, have to be meaningful and impactful to you as a person. So my question now is, how much of your personal background or personal experiences do you allow to influence your creative decision when you decide to make a film or tell a good story?
Okay. I think a lot of times, who you are as a person, your background, kind of, drops a little bit into your craft, because I feel like it's a source. That's where you come from. So for me, I use my background as a form of like a river or a well where I go in to tap, some sort of connection to the story that I'm trying to tell. And surprisingly, that happens very, very often, because when yesterday I was looking at something somebody said about a film that somebody directed, and they were asking him about this. It was a book actually. I forgot what the name of the book was, and the connection for him from the book was how his mother fled China and went to the US as immigrants, and how they struggled, and how they found their way, and to the point where he's comfortable to tell that story now. For some random reason, the book that was written without him even knowing about that kind of resonates to his story. And I think that for me personally, that's usually what I would do, or usually what I do, and I usually find my way from that thing. So I think that as an artist, my background is a well where I get to connect myself to my stories. And if I can't find that, I'm sure that I can find that from somewhere. But mostly for me right now, that happens to me is what happens to me is I drive that from my background.
Alright. My next question is to you, Nwamaka. And my question now revolves around when you have to tell a story, that is not necessarily yours. Let's say not from a personal experience directly. How do you balance staying true to what the story needs and your own personal opinion or bias that you might have regarding the story you're about to tell or you want to tell?
So I'll use two examples of projects that I've done. I made a film titled My Mama Na Ashawo, right? So my mother is not a prostitute, but that's one. Two, I'm not a prostitute, in case anybody's wondering. So, well, the film is titled My Mama Na Ashawo, and I remember it was, we had a problem of how to start a story like that and keep it PG, because we're telling the narrative story from the point of view of an 11-year-old whose mother is a prostitute. So how do we tell it as innocently and as truthful as a boy would tell it? So my mom is one of the most important people in my life, right? I don't think there's anything my mom could have been doing as a profession that would change how I feel about her. So I wanted to find a universal relatability to the story, and that would put me there and put the audience to hopefully into the story. And it's the love we have for our mother. It doesn't. Your mother can be a doctor, your mother can be anything, but we love our mother and we want, yeah. So that was what the story was. Secondly as well, we made a film titled Heads Boy, and what the idea for the film came from a conversation I had with a boy who told me that he was in Abuja University at the time, 100 level, that he hates being a heads boy now because when he goes to school, he tries to hide everything about being a head boy, and when he comes back home, he doesn't read or do his assignments in front of his brothers because they don't like that he's going to school. So there's this boy just walking in his path between two worlds. And as someone who is chronically introverted, who likes to stay by myself, I try to find a connection as well. So what puts me in this story and makes it easy for me to find a way, because if I don't connect to it, it's going to be difficult. I will not lie, I've done films that, because of money, we just did sharp. It doesn't really matter, but at the core of it, as a storyteller, if you connect to the story, it's easy to find nucleus, to be able to find like a straight path between you and the experiences and the story.
Ajay, my next question is, my next question goes to AJ, and it's about the responsibility that comes with telling stories about communities and social realities. We heard from Nwamaka. She said she made a film about a heads boy. She made a film titled My Mama Na Ashawo. So when you have to tell stories about, it could be marginalized communities, anything particularly about communities, especially communities that you might not have first-hand experience with, how do you tackle or balance your responsibility as a filmmaker to tell those stories accurately?
Okay. To be honest, right, I don't see myself directing a lot of films or stories that I haven't really experienced. At least for now, that's what I think. And I say that because I've had a very unique life as young as I am. And I've told the story when I was talking about Girl Boy, right? And about how just how I look and just gender expression has always been a starting point of conversation with people I've met throughout different points of my life, right? So I'm already living in that. I can say I'm part of this marginalized community, right? Of people that don't subscribe to, like what exactly of what a woman should look like, right? You can say that. And if we agree on that, then I'm already in that community and I'm living in it, right? So naturally, every story I'm telling that is inspired by my life is already from me being in this community, right? And because I'm living this like reality, like I owe it to myself to really put out what I feel and how these different experiences have affected my life and how I am presented in a way that people can understand and empathize with how I'm feeling. And if I were to direct, if I were to direct like a film written by another screenwriter, I don't think that I can't, right? Because we all have emotions. Like you know what it means to be, you know how it feels to be angry. I know how it feels to be angry. You know, you felt happiness. I felt happiness. You felt joy. So because I have felt those different emotions, I believe that I can translate that to screen if I were to direct that. But to me, I just feel a sense of like duty first and responsibility to put out the stories that I have experienced personally for this community that I'm a part of before anything else. Have I answered your question? I hope so.
Now, my next question goes to Reuben. Just a few hours ago, I was having a conversation with someone here about a popular film, or slightly popular film this year, you know, and how it portrayed a certain demography of people in Nigeria, you know. And in fact, that film enraged me, I'll be honest. So my question now is, how can you manage to tell a story that is inclusive and avoid stereotypes?
Okay, just to be clear, are we talking about the hurt? Are we talking about the hurt? Okay. I think I've had my own fair share of, telling stories that have to do with, diversity in most times region, especially in Nigeria. So I've done some few northern stories, cutting across, the Muslims and Christians. And for me, one of the things that I have tried to do is, in trying to balance that, I think like somebody said earlier on during the other session, is to know a little bit more about, the people that you're trying to represent, or the people that are trying to, the culture or the religion, or the part of the society, whether it's marginalized or not. How do you best represent them in a way that is considered, I would say, reasonable? And I think that one of the best things that has happened for me after watching The Hurt by Daniel F. Young, I think on Netflix, was the fact that he was able to balance, the story from the perspective of, the kidnappers, not necessarily making the good guys obviously, but then, but telling it in a way that it doesn't necessarily, depict them as, oh, they are all Muslims, and then, you go ahead to, make it look as if it's an Islamic and a Christian kind of thing, or, if it's an Igbo boy and an Igbo and Yoruba girl, you wouldn't want to say, oh, play with the stereotype. Even though somehow, I don't necessarily think that stereotypes could be controversial. I don't necessarily think that stereotypes are a bad thing, but in representation, especially when they have negative conditions, it gives a bad representation. But then when it's a good one, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. Okay, so I think for an artist, can you hear me? So I think one of the duties of an artist or a filmmaker or any form of expression, I think, is to be unbiased when you're trying to, say something. And I think that we owe that to the society that we belong in. We owe that to the audience that we're going to, enjoy or consume our content. To be well learned in all of the space where you are going to be, where you need the information to tell that story. So I think that's like where I come from, and I think it's a beautiful thing to feel like I did talking about things that we do for money. I did a film recently, and I mean I love the story because it was a fantastic story. But it was sorry, I think it's me. Okay, so it was a fantastic story about Oruga, which is like a Fulani settlement, and how the girl brought a man into the settlement without the knowledge of her parents. And of course, then she fell in love with the guy, and there's this, love, jealousy, sacrifice kind of thing going on in the story. And for me, this one of the things that I told myself was, how do I best interpret the love between somebody who is like a relationship between two Muslim people, and considering the fact that even in the north, even in Kaniro, there's a way that love is being presented, and not necessarily because it's wrong, but I think because of the culture of the people in the north. So there's still, sensitivity that you have to have on that. So is she going to be touching his hands? Is she going to be hugging him like the full hug? Is she going to be like lying on him? Is she going to be lying on her? All of those things are very, very interesting. So I had to like look at those things. Funny story, I shot something for African Magic where it's also a story that has to do with the northern culture, where a man's wife was stabbed, and the man comes to the house and then he sees his wife bleeding on the floor. And so I told the actor, okay, so the lady is a Christian, the actress is a Christian, then he is a Muslim. And he was supposed to come see her and then, try to rush to stop the bleeding and all of that. And after discussing the whole scene and the direction and all of that, the guy now pulled me to the side and he was like, I'm so sorry, I can't touch her. And I was like, okay, so first you have to understand that it's not you, it's the character you're playing, right? And this lady is not your wife, it's the character she's playing. The guy said, I can't touch her. Like, I can't literally touch her skin, touch her body, whatever. And so for me, I had to think about it in a way that, okay, so that's the cultural thing, and that's probably a religious thing as well, but then I have to be sensitive enough to open myself to that and see how I can express that in a way that it will be, it won't violate his own belief, and then also at the same time send out the message. It's a very tricky place to be, but I think that's something that we have to do that frequently as you work, especially when you're working with people from different backgrounds, different belief systems, different religions, and different
So I'm not gonna I noticed while watching Sunny with Love, I noticed you might, let's hope it works better now.
She can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Alright. So while watching Sunny with Love, I noticed the intentional choice of visuals, colors and all that in the film. So I wanted to ask, what visual or narrative techniques or choices can help us tell both stories or amplify the kind of both stories that we want to tell?
Watch both films. I say this all the time. A filmmaker who does not watch films has really nothing to tell me. And I'm not saying watch films, just consume art. It can be podcasts. I know someone that would just rather listen to the summary of books and podcasts, read something. But so I feel like because that's the thing that helps us to experience some of these things. and being someone that is born and bred here, I don't think I'll be where I am imaginatively if I didn't watch the films I watched or read the books I read, because that is, if you've not experienced it. So I think it was set in 1976. I was not born in 1976. So some of the things that I did with the rest of the team was, number one, about the colors, is I have uncles, my mom, my parents, I gathered all their pictures, their vintage pictures, so that we don't even have to, because I wanted ordinary people, what ordinary people were wearing at that time, and not the celebrities of the time, because it's easy for us or the films that were set at that time and find that wouldn't give us the true depiction of what the Nigerians at that time were wearing. So even not just my parents and my uncles, some of the crew members, I know that our sound guy said he had an uncle who was the general at the time. He brought pictures that helped us, even the actor, we had to send it to the actor, look at this man, look at how you can't stand it, want to stand like this, want to do your hand like this. So these are the things that helped with the colors. And about the colors as well, I like vibrant films. I feel like if I ever make a horror movie, it will be very colorful. I don't know how that will fit into that trope, but I like the visual to make sense to what I'm watching. It should give me it's a vintage film. I just didn't want it to look like that on face value. There are things that can complicate that without the grading of the film being weird, or all of them wearing brown or vintage colored clothing. I want very bright, very bright. Even on the set, the lipstick, red. I have my auntie's picture, her graduation picture. She had like this very red matte lipstick, and she graduated in the 70s. So these are the things that I didn't want a lot of afro, because my mom never really had afro. She braided her hair, she wore hair extensions and stuff at that time. So I didn't want us to fit into the stereotype, and I think that's what reflected in the story, because it wasn't really that intentional to be, and I've had that comment about the colors and everything. It was just that I wanted people to just look very regular, and Nigerians naturally, Igbo women are colorful people with their dresses, so it just showed.
Okay. Yeah, no, just like she said, you have to consume a lot of like films and a lot of books, and just like be curious enough to see what other storytellers or filmmakers are doing in their own films. But for Girl Boy, okay, yeah, like I was saying earlier, right? When I was editing the film, I realized the girls were telling a lot of stories that I could imagine, and I wanted other people to be able to see like what I was seeing, and just see like, like fully be in their own shoes and understand the stories they were telling. So I decided to do animation, and even in the animation, it wasn't random. When I was in school, because I did art history as well, right? And at different points in school, I had to write essays about different art periods and how they influenced society and how they reflected society. And so I remember just some different like references. I had some different artworks, paintings I had written about at the time, and it just came to mind when I was looking for references for my animation, right? And so yeah, the style of the animation is heavily inspired by that. And even the colors, I wanted each character to have like a color assigned to them. So Tinuka is blue, Ella is yellow, and then the other ones are green and pink. So, I mean, it was a stylistic choice, even with the character design as well. And then for the editing, the film is in black and white, except like in the last 5 minutes where it comes into color. And that was something I saw in another film, where it wasn't like a direct copy of what I saw right in that film. Because when I was editing, the outfits they were wearing and even the backdrops were very like vibrant colors. To me, I felt like they were distracting to the stories they were telling. So when I was editing, I made it black and white just to even focus on the actual stories, not anything else in the background. that was distracting. So yeah, I made it black and white. But then towards the end of the film, when they start talking about like acceptance and just where they are at in life right now, it became more positive. And I was like, okay, how do I make this thing more like, how do I visually, show that we're now in a more positive headspace? And I was like, oh, I can just change it back to color. And I saw this in another film, and then this was how the director or the filmmaker did it, and that was what I did in Girl Boy. So yeah, it's just like watching, just being curious, having an open mind, watching different films, reading books, and experimenting in editing as well.
Okay, now we'll take the final question before we allow members of the audience to ask their questions as well. I'll start from you, AJ, and then go down to Nwamaka. You will give responses to the question. So now, this final question concerns financing for bold stories, unconventional stories. If you decide to tell a bold story, it might not necessarily be popular, or mainstream. So how do you go about getting financial support for your film, or getting your film into festivals, where people can see it and interact with it?
Okay. So this is the first film I have made that is not that's not less than 5 minutes already experimental, right? And it's one I really put in a lot of efforts into making and submitting to festivals and finding distribution for. But what has worked for me is grants and finding grants for my projects and this film especially. But I was saying earlier that when I had the idea for Girl Boy, I always knew it was going to be a documentary. By the time I wasn't seeing any film grants I could apply to. So I adapted it as a photography project, and I got commissioned to do something for Adobe, and I got money from that. So I made it as a photography project first, and then now made a documentary. But I disclosed to them that I had the idea to do this as a documentary, but I'm adapting it as a photography project now. So I'll give you your pictures, but then I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to have the same title, and they were fine with it. Yeah. So grants are what have worked for me. But there are also times where, during the making of Girl Boy, where I had to self-fund the project until I was able to do, until I was able to find more funding to do the animation for the film, and even the submitting to film festivals was self-funded. But again, at different points, I've had people reach out to me. So I remember there was this founder of this distribution company that reached out to me to say he read the synopsis of the film and he was interested in it to distribute it, and if I could share a private link. So I shared it with him, and he said he thinks it's a really great film, but it's too stylistic for what they were trying to do at the time, So, making films like this, bold films like this, you have to be okay with the fact that there may not be one way to having it distributed or having it shown. You have to be okay with the fact that you may or may not get funding to make it in the first place, and you may not get the support that other mainstream films will have in terms of marketing or distribution for the film. But yeah, so far grants have worked for me, and self-funding as well.
Okay, so I think earlier on we were having a conversation about art house films and commercial films. And for me, I feel like lots of commercial art house films fall under bold stories, because if you look at the trajectory, or if you look at the themes of all art house films, they usually are very human. They're very societal. They're very grounded. And as a filmmaker, for me personally, I've been in the space of freelancing for a while and trying to go into, making my own production, and it's also gearing towards the side of an art house film. And I know that because of the story, because of the themes, because of the voice of the story, you will find it difficult to find money. I'm finding it difficult to find money now. And the truth is, for you to be able to convince somebody and tell them that, I have this story and it might not necessarily be a viable story commercially. But it is a good story, and I think that it's a human story that I think people would love, people would to resonate with people, and I feel like this specific point or this particular people of society would feel seen. That's not their problem. The problem is how to make their money back, obviously. So it's a difficult thing, but doesn't mean that you can't get money. You can get money from people who believe in the story. For me, I think that's something that I'm currently trying to realize now, that you have to find the people who believe in the story and people who are willing to put in that support or put in that belief into the project to get you to a space where you're comfortable enough to make the film with the money that you have. So yeah, I would say, because I've been in that freelance space for a while now, so I wouldn't necessarily say that I have it now. I'm still in the process of trying to get it, and it's not easy, to be honest.
So the issue of money is the bane of every filmmaker. These are the issues. And as someone who is chronically introverted, I don't like talking about money. And as a filmmaker, it's not even just about knowing where to get the money. Dressing up and smiling and sitting down and asking for the money, and then probably someone just asking you very stupid, useless questions, but you still have to smile. But what I'm learning this year is that financing a film doesn't have to be actually looking for money. There are in-kind finance. So collaboration is a way of financing a film, and I'm trying to get into the business of film so that we are not very poor. Art house filmmakers are mostly very poor. But to make that money is to find, and like someone said, the EPs, we always think about an executive producer as one man, one chief, or one company giving you all the money. But I feel like if you watch Hollywood films and just look through the credits, you see that a lot of people, different organizations, different countries even, come together to make that film. So the way I'm looking at sourcing for funding, apart from what she said, grants, I feel like looking into collaborative spaces. And I might be I'm a director, I'm a writer-director, so most times I have a story already. So I can have that, and then I meet a producer, and the person is willing to bring their production company. Now we are co-producing the film, and then we meet an actor, and then the actor has their own outfits. We are also co-producing. Before you know it, there's like 4 or 5 production companies coming together to make that film. And I'm not getting paid as a director because I've invested that fee. I've forfeited it to the project and the writer fee, all of this. Before you know it, the money that you probably just need to make the film will now go down to just logistics, which sometimes if you find, and I think that's a fresh way of looking at financing that I think for someone who is not, who is still practically sort of up and coming, to get the money and to make the kind of film we want to make without bias. Because you pitch a story, someone that's giving you the money will say, my younger brother's cousin, this thing will play the big role, or put this certain actor, whether you like it or not. Sometimes they tell you, director, you have to listen, and before you know it, you're older than you actually are, because you're trying to fight stupid battles just because you don't have. So for me, financing now, and I would advise every filmmaker out there is just find people who would share the credits, share the loss, and share the profits. We don't all have to make the film ourselves, because again, the kind of films I want to make are very expensive films, and I don't have the money to make them. So the person that my man Ashawo was almost a low budget film, I wasn't paid when we made the film. Because one thing I told the producer was the money you're supposed to pay me, we'll use it to submit to festivals, because there are festivals and then the film to screen at. So the DP as well had to bring in its own money so that we can submit to the festival, and which paid off in the long run. Because it was some of the money for to Ajay, my first feature came from this, the producer of my brother Sharon. So that's the way, again, the business of film. Collaboration now is a new way of financing, and I think filmmakers need to key into that as well.
All right, we've come to the end of this session. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? Any question before we get to the final remarks from the panelists? Okay, question.
Sorry, I'm actually new. I'm just like, I'm actually a software developer and trying to get into the movie industry. See, how do you deal with rejection from collaboration? So that's what I'm trying to do. Because I like questions, I like to write questions. That's what I specialize in. So I have some questions. I've been trying to like get someone to work with me, like let's make this together. I don't know, but I'm scared of rejection. I'm really scared. I'm scared of someone telling me no. Just send, they will tell you, send email, send us email. I'll be like, what if I don't get a reply or something like that? So I'm really, really scared.
Before they go on to answer any other question.
Hi. So you talked about access to grants and all, and I know that a lot of upcoming filmmakers, one of the problems we have is finances. And whether we like it or not, there's lots of gatekeeping in Nigeria. So where do you get this information? Where do you learn about grants that upcoming filmmakers, new filmmakers can get access to grants and funding for their movies, for their stories? Because that's very important. No matter the idea and the story you have, if you don't have the funding, you can't do anything. I like the talk about collaboration, it makes sense, but there's still people that still need this money. So where can you get the access to grants, those information and all that would help?
Any other question? No. Thank you. So who wants to go first?
So, I mean, it's really as simple as posting somewhere and then you can't, there's nothing you can do about that. And it's as simple as talking to 40 people, hoping that at least 2 people will be interested. That's one, two. And again, yours is a peculiar case as well. It's not just a regular story, it's a queer story. So you also want people who actually want to tell the story. Because what you don't want, and trust me, are just airheads on your set. Just people who think it's good to be on a film set. You're going to suffer. Like you would rather they did not show up at all. So you rather they are telling you no. There are people that will show up on your set, you will just, so it's still finding your people. And and spaces like this as well. One of the things that helped me as a filmmaker is networking, because apart from being on set, you probably never see me on the road or somewhere. I only see this man in the event or when we're working on set, and it's not a very good thing, but these are the places that you can find someone who would likely collaborate with you. So I'm also not a fan of emails. I used to sweat if I send out, I hope this meets you well kind of email. But now you have to do it, right? And that thing also is putting yourself out there. If it's a 1-minute film, you do it. If it's through your skits, and you can literally just write down your story. I'm working on this square film, and I'm looking for just put your story. Don't send anybody an email. You don't know who's going to reach out to you. I've reached out to a filmmaker that I love the poster of, and he made a short film, just left. That's how I met him. I saw on my Instagram Explore page, I saw a call to audition call, and I loved how I loved the title of the film. And I was not doing anything. I said, yeah, I can AD for your film. And that was how, and he's a movie, and I came on board and I AD. He didn't contact me, I wrote to him because I was interested. I said, if I like your story, so he sent me the script and I did like it and I made the film. So that's the thing with collaboration, and I feel like you find your people and your mates also get a lot of those, so praise yourself.
Just to say a little bit about the rejection thing, I think that one of the things that helps us as filmmakers is when, like Amaka just said everything, you can't find your way around that. Like you're always going to be rejected, and it just takes that angel investor, or it just takes that kind, hearted person to see what you're up to, and then decide to invest in you. But I also think that the beauty of writing to people, or trying to get people to align with your project or with your vision and all of that is, I think, curating the pitches, or curating the project to them specifically. So if you have like a flat, flat say pitch deck, or an idea or whatever for your story, and it goes out to everybody, most likely you might get more rejections than you would if you curate them specifically for specific people and what you think that they will gain from that. And I think it's a give and take situation. So you try to give as much as you can, and then they see also what they're going to take from that. So, but I think one of the things that makes you strong, because filmmaking space for the strong. So I think one of the things that makes you strong is just like knowing how to get up when you fall. Pretty much, you can't stay down for long, because if you do that, then you're out of the game. I think for the grant question, how do you find the grants, and how do you get people who would grant you? So in one small experience, what I found out is I found out that there are some grants for specific regions of the world. Like there are some grants for South Americans, there's some grants for Africa, Asia, there's some grants for Europe and America. And I think that maybe, I'm not sure what the site is, that's the particular site I know, I'm not sure what that site is. It's pretty much about the curation also, just to find out what story you're going to tell, who most likely is going to invest into that story. And I think that once you find those people, once you find the person who, or you find the grants that for that film, if it's a documentary, like Shia said, it's a documentary, who are the people who are most likely going to invest in the documentary and all of that. Just find those people. But I think being in those spaces help.
So just to ask what he has said, sometimes when I watch films, I also watch the credits, and I think every filmmaker should watch credits, right? And you see at the end of the film credits, this film was funded by, or this film was funded with support from. So I think you should always look out for things like that, so you know what organizations are supporting what, and just what kind of resources are out there. Like the last film I watched, I think was My Father's Shadow. There are like 5 different productions. I think the BBC, National Lottery. So go on the BFI. So go on the BFI, go and look for the funding opportunities that they have. Go to the National Lottery, go and see what opportunities that they have. Even in lots of film festivals, they have like different workshops and things like that, some funding opportunities. So just watch films, watch the credits, look out for what organizations are supporting these films. And then there are also, I think Instagram now has this community feature, right? I've seen one community, the website is called Arts Connect, and they have like different opportunities they curate every other day. And they also have a community on Instagram, so you can check it out and just see what they have going on. In Nigeria, I only know about Obodo, Nigeria. They are based in sources I can think about now. Yeah.
Right. Any final comments from you before we leave?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. I think I love the topic we're discussing right now, which is like, bold narratives. And we have to give props to a lot of Nigerian filmmakers who are, for the past 5 years or so, I would think that the stories have, incredibly improved in the different aspects of storytelling. And I think that is as a result of, taking bold steps to tell, our stories, to tell African stories. Because, if we don't tell the stories, somebody will tell the stories and they will tell them within their perspectives. So, knowing how to, be impactful in that space, knowing how to take the bold step to tell a story and what you believe in. I feel like what you believe in drives you in taking that step. If you have, as a filmmaker, you have something or you have a story that you believe passionately that is going to, go somewhere and it's going to say something, you should believe in that story enough for it to be made. And I think that's something I tell myself all the time. So believe in that story enough for it to be made. And I think that by doing that, we are most likely going to change the narrative of, both storytelling in Nigeria. I think that's what I'm voting for. So thank you for having this discussion.
So my comment would be that we should watch films, and this is to. I just want to assume that we are Abuja filmmakers, and I hate when you go out there, you hear that there's no industry in Abuja, there are no this in Abuja, and because those conversations are hard, the investors don't come here, and the grants we're talking about, when you go to Lagos for an event, you see investors from all over the world. They will come to Lagos and they will be begging these people to tell us stories. They are asking for stories. There was a program, it was Netflix, and how they left Nigeria because certain people did certain things that made them weak. And I was really angry. I said, when they were going to some other countries, they actually went to, for Tokyo, they went to different cities in the country and met different filmmakers. And there was like a symposium for that. But in Nigeria, they went to Lagos. And I'm like, it's garbage in, garbage out. If Fuka Kindele does 100 films, Fuka Kindele will Fuka Kindele. And good or bad, if Kula Flyer does 1 million films, Reuben does 1 million films, Reuben will Reuben. There's always going to be a Reuben. If Kalaperi does 1 million films, but if you want diverse voices, they have to fund diverse filmmakers. So you cannot tell me that Nigerian filmmakers are shady, Nigerian filmmakers are this. Meanwhile, you gave all $1 billion to only 5 filmmakers. Why don't you divide it $50 million and share it across Nigeria and see before you can say we're leaving Nigeria? Because I was really mad. Like, no, you cannot tell me that. I don't know any shady filmmakers. I don't know who these people. We know who these people are. They're just the same 5 people that Netflix comes, gives money, complains. Amazon comes, gives money, complains, and it kind of rubs off on all of us. Now you're trying to, even this gatekeeping. Sometimes you have these projects, you don't know who the hell to pitch it to. They say, oh, Netflix, you can't go through Netflix without going to certain people. And then you have someone in their office telling you, if we sell this thing for you, it will take 60%. This is someone that just, their job is just because they know how to get to these people. And because Netflix didn't come to us directly, they didn't give us information on how to reach them. We are scrambling to go and kiss ass. So again, I would always be on the path of collaboration in Abuja. If a film comes out that is made here and locally made and locally sourced, we should all just come out and support. And that is how we can build this industry. They claim that it's not existent. I don't think it is. So yeah, that's.
thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Please, once again, let's give a round of applause for the